You don't ask for much in love. You tell yourself you're low maintenance. You say you're just grateful for what you get. But sometimes, late at night, you wonder why the smallest gestures feel like something you have to earn. You've learned to be okay with less reassurance, less effort, less consistency. When someone cancels, you understand. When they forget, you brush it off. When they give you attention only when it's convenient, you tell yourself they're busy. You don't like being too much. You don't like asking for clarity. You don't like feeling needy. So you shrink your expectations quietly. You celebrate small crumbs as if they're full meals. A short message becomes proof they care. A rare compliment becomes something you replay in your mind for days. You don't demand more, because part of you feels lucky to have anything at all. And maybe you don't even realize how often you silence yourself, how often you swallow disappointment before it fully forms, how often you convince yourself, it's fine, I'm fine. But underneath that calm acceptance, there's a quiet ache. You don't want grand gestures. You just want consistency. You just want to feel chosen without having to compete for it. And sometimes you wonder why that feels like too much to ask. Many people who accept the bare minimum in love didn't start out that way. Often it develops slowly. Sometimes you grow up learning that love isn't steady. It comes in waves. It's warm one day and distant the next. Over time you adapt. You learn to treasure the warm moments and survive the cold ones. You become skilled at reading subtle shifts in tone. You learn how to adjust yourself to keep the peace. If attention felt conditional, you may have learned to perform for it. If affection felt unpredictable, you may have learned not to rely on it. None of this makes you weak. It makes you adaptable. Many people become experts at minimizing their needs because at some point needing less felt safer than asking for more. Sometimes you tell yourself that wanting more closeness is unrealistic, that expecting consistency is demanding, that love is always a little disappointing, and that's just how it is. Over time, you may begin to believe that if you just become easier, quieter, more understanding, you'll finally feel secure. But what's really happening is something much more human. You're protecting yourself from rejection. You're protecting yourself from being told you're too much. You're protecting yourself from losing what little connection feels available. And protection can look like acceptance, but carrying this pattern has a cost. When you accept the bare minimum, you slowly disconnect from your own longing. You stop checking in with what you truly feel. You stop asking whether your needs are being met. You focus on gratitude instead of honesty. On the outside, you seem calm and understanding. On the inside, there's a quiet exhaustion. Because pretending not to need much still requires energy. You may start to feel lonely even when you're not alone. You may feel unseen even while being loved in small ways. You may begin to question your own worth without fully realizing it. Sometimes the loneliness isn't loud, it's subtle. It shows up as numbness, as lowered expectations, as telling yourself this is just how relationships are. Over time, you may begin to feel smaller in your own life, not because you lack value, but because you've learned to fold yourself into whatever space is available. You become incredibly understanding, incredibly patient, incredibly forgiving, and yet there's a part of you that quietly wonders what it would feel like to be pursued with the same intensity you give, what it would feel like to not have to convince yourself that crumbs are enough. If this feels familiar, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Often, accepting the bare minimum was a way of staying connected. It was a way of surviving emotional uncertainty, a way of protecting your heart from deeper disappointment, a way of keeping love within reach, even if it wasn't everything you hoped for. There is intelligence in that. There is sensitivity in that. You learned how to endure. You learned how to adapt. You learned how to find warmth in small spaces. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And the fact that you're even noticing this pattern, that quiet question inside you, says something important. It says a part of you knows you matter. You are not difficult for wanting consistency. You are not demanding for wanting effort. You are not selfish for wanting to feel chosen. Sometimes awareness begins gently, just by noticing what you've been accepting. And whatever you discover about yourself, let it be met with softness. You are not broken. You were adapting. And somewhere inside you, the part that longs for more hasn't disappeared. It's simply waiting to be heard.